So, Paul, we'll start with the new signing that you made last Friday. You brought in Emmanuel Diarsave to the club. How and why did that deal come about?
Um, I think that it's kind of, I guess, how swiftly we did that. It was stemmed from training on Wednesday when Ryan Taylor suffered a groin injury, and Tristan Abrams also limped off the training pitch in the same training session. So we, having just let Lenny go to York to try and, I guess, get some sharpness in some games, we were kind of left with no recognised centre forward heading to Southend. Now, as it turned out, Tristan was actually okay, but certainly midday Wednesday, stroke early afternoon, we were in a position, like I said, of not having a striker. So obviously, I've said before about trying to have people ready to come in and if their situation may have changed, because Manny himself had just been on the bench for Tranmere, I think it was the night before, that hadn't particularly been the case of late. But thankfully, he was available, and after speaking to Tranmere and Manny himself, we got the deal done, and travelled with us, ready for the game at Southend. Obviously, that was delayed, but he's been training with us since then, and he's ready to be part of the squad for the trip to Dover.
What can he offer to this squad, and why did you choose to bring him in for the remainder of the season rather than perhaps a 1 month loan?
I think a little bit to protect ourselves. Now, no one knows exactly how the rest of the season's going to pan out, but obviously we all want it to involve some big games and be part of games at the right end of the table, getting into those spots where we want to be. And I think just last week kind of just made me think, it's not a season-long loan or anything like that. It's a few months where I would rather have the headache of telling someone that they're in the squad or leaving them out, rather than leave us, low on numbers and not having the options that we potentially could have done last week. So that's the reason, and certainly till the end of the season. And in terms of him, I think he's got a physical presence. He's mobile with that as well, though. He holds the ball up well, and he's got experience in this league. He's won promotion from it. So I think those boxes he ticks, and attributes that he can bring to the squad. He's a player that hasn't quite worked for him at Tranmere, and he's hungry. Having spoke to him, he's seemed, and the homework that we've done, the right type of character. So we're hoping that he can help the squad. He brings competition, and ultimately that's what it will be. Players have to perform in that area of the pitch to warrant being in the team.
Is he a sort of a similar mold to Ryan Taylor, or is he a little bit different to that?
No, I think he's a bit different. I would say he's different than the others, albeit certainly a Lenny and a Ryan, he has a physicality about him, certainly. But they're all slightly different in their ways. Manny, I know he's would like to add more goals to his game. Seen that. I said before, there's no guarantees with anyone, and certainly sometimes players go to certain clubs or get certain times in the career, and suddenly it clicks. And it might not again elsewhere, or that might set him off and running. I think Padraig Amond in a lot of ways was probably the biggest example of that. Don't get me wrong, he scored some goals, but there was nothing to suggest that he would come in and score the amount of goals that he did. I'm not saying man, he's going to go on that streak, but it'd be nice. But at the same time, let's give him the opportunities. What I've seen in training, he certainly can find the back of the net. So let's hope he can do that in a Grimsby Township.
Where is he at in terms of match fitness? Would he be available to start the weekend if you so choose, for example?
Yeah, I think so. And now I'm not saying that he would be at his physical peak for 90 minutes. Did a bit of running Monday. Well, a toughish session that involved just a little bit of running, and I think he, admittedly found that tough. But at the same time, he's certainly in shape. It's not like we've got to get him to lose a couple of stone or anything silly like that. So he's ready to go, and I know he's keen to get started. So yeah, it'll be more for me to decide what team to put out there rather than him not being in because of fitness concerns.
Where are we at then with Ryan Taylor and Tristan Abrahams? You spoke about their injuries a second ago.
Yeah, Tristan's fine. As it turned out, he was fine and fit and with us down at Southend. I don't know if it was just a bit of sort of initial worry or fear.
What was the injury? Sorry,
it was a kick on his ankle in training, and he got up, tried to carry on, then limped off and said he couldn't continue. So I think it was maybe a little bit of worry there on his side, and thankfully, it settled very quickly to the point where he trained the next day, and then we travelled. So that was a positive for us. Ryan's his groin. Stretched for a ball, he felt it, but there was quite a bit of bruising there anyway, so we don't know if it was perhaps damaged prior, albeit he hadn't really felt it. So the scans suggest it's nothing too bad, but I guess we've experienced it ourselves, and just generally that gives you a guide. It's not a set in stone time frame, but I did imagine he'll certainly miss the next few games for us.
When you say the next few games, so we are talking weeks rather than months, though?
Yes, yeah. Certainly hope so anyway.
Of course. How's Jordan Maguire-Drew? Would he have been available to play last weekend?
He was, yeah. He travelled with us, he trained, but now he's not available. So he's had on Monday, he dropped out of training with the same injury. So obviously that suggests it hadn't healed correctly. Again, we've had that. So it's very similar in terms of what the scan's showing, the damage there. So again, won't be available this Saturday. I think next Saturday would be a no, and we'll have to see after that.
Must be a concern that that's a recurrence of certainly the same area of injury.
Yeah, because he said it felt good. It took longer than we thought it would have initially. Then felt good. All the things he would have probably most likely been in the match day squad at Southend. And then said train Monday, was fine to start with, and then I think he said he ran for a ball, sort of decelerated and just felt a sharp pain in his calf, and yeah, that's unfortunately back to square one with it. So yeah, we need to have a look at that and hopefully get him back available to us as soon as possible.
And Max Wright limped off obviously on Tuesday with a knock on his ankle. Where are you at with him?
Yeah, that's still very sore, Elliot, unfortunately. He's I've got no idea genuinely on timeframes with that one, but certainly at the minute there's no way that he would be setting foot on a training pitch or a match day pitch. He's still hobbling around quite heavily, and the swelling's bad there. So yeah, we'll just have to see how that settles down over the next couple of days, really, before we potentially look at anything else. Slightly
frustrating that while you've been out of action, all the teams around you seem to have won, and the gap's back to 5 points now.
I don't particularly see it that way. I know there's some games. I was at a game last Saturday. I was at game midweek, but I think at the same time, certainly midweek, there was a lot of draws.
Yeah, there were 8, to be fair.
Yeah, you could argue they both get a point, so that's good for him. But at the same time, they didn't take maximum points. Some games were probably involved, as I said, will occur with top teams playing each other. Others, maybe on paper at least, it might be deemed as dropping points. But said it's tough. I look at Boreham Wood last Saturday. I'd been to a game, then watched that game on TV. Nothing's easy. It's certainly our point at Maidenhead looks a better point than it did feel at the time when you look at what they've done to a lot of teams there. And that's, I guess, leads into me for Saturday. Everyone will expect we go there and we win. And I certainly hope that that's the case. But we can't just turn up and think that's going to be the case. We've got to earn the right, and we've got to run hard. We've got to go with the right mentality to get that result. Because if we don't, then we do leave ourselves open to, what would be a surprise to, I guess, a lot of people. They've shown in recent games they're not just going to roll over for people. Stockport away is a prime example of that. Gave a real good fight there. Only lost by the single goal, 0-0 midweek at Aldershot. So they're still fighting. Their position, it looks pretty ominous and what will happen. But at the same time, they're still clearly giving their all, whether it's for themselves, whether it's for the manager, whether it's for the club. So we've got to turn up, like I said, with that right attitude and make sure that when we're travelling back, it's with the 3 points that we want for his own cause, never mind anything else. As you said, it is very tight. We're slightly behind. We've got to get as many points as we can, and Saturday's certainly the next opportunity for us to do so.
And although you beat them 6-0 in the reverse fixture, and as you say, it's a game you are expected to win. It doesn't always play out like that. Is it a case of just, you got the results earlier in the season, obviously when you went to Aldershot, when you went to Kidderminster, even though that was a different competition, does that play in the back of your mind in terms of guarding against a little bit of complacency and just making sure you are 100% there?
I think when you sat in this position and, whether it was a player or manager for the last 20 odd years being involved in football, it's kind of, you don't even think about it. You just know that it's one of those games and you've got to try and make sure people are right. If you sense anything different, you try and stamp that out. It's just part and parcel of a season. And again, we've seen loads of results that not only for ourselves, but in general that surprise us in one sense, but in a lot of other ways it doesn't. Once you actually give it some thought, because as I said before, if it was all played out, there'd only be an handful of games probably where we'd be like, I'm not sure who's going to win that. The rest of them we say, well, they've won, that's a draw, whatever, and it wouldn't be exciting. It's what makes it exciting. It's all on the day. Whether you relate it, I guess, to cup games when there's upsets, and this is kind of that sort of scenario in one sense. But ultimately, we want to try and keep our run going, and as I said, get the points that we need to make sure that we, are involved in that mix and stay in touch with that group of teams that are, majority of them certainly above us at the minute.